Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and I today am about to bring you one of the reviews that I have been looking forward the most to getting to on this channel and for 2025, and that of course is The Fantastic Four: First Steps, directed by Matt Shakman, starring Pedro, Pascal, Vanessa, Kirby, Ebon, Moss-Bachrach, Joseph Quinn, Julia Gardner, and Ralph Ineson as Galactus. And this follows the Fantastic Four, their first entry in the MCU, and we follow them on Earth 828 as they are trying to stop their world from being threatened by the Silver Surfer and Galactus. And that's as much as I'll get into right now. It's a pretty standard comic book setup, but what really isn't is how they go about it. And we have to, acknowledge the past of the Fantastic Four on film. And look, I haven't seen any of those movies, but I all hear they're garbage. So I haven't even bothered to check them out, and I'm probably not missing out on much. And so, they say that fourth time's a charm. Not really, but in this case I absolutely think that is for certain, because I didn't have this in my top 10 most anticipated films of the year. I opted this out for Superman, of course, which I really enjoyed, but I didn't love that one quite as much to the level that everyone else has been loving it. But I had a feeling that for me Fantastic Four might stand out just a little bit more, and honestly, so far, this isn't that much of a high bar, but this is one of my favorite comic book movies of the decade. Now, that isn't to say that this is a perfect film by any means. It is quite flawed in a lot of ways. There's no denying that. But I think what this film achieves, the highs that it reaches, are really unlike anything we've seen from the MCU in quite some time. But also they finally nailed this team. Now, a lot of people who are more familiar with the comics than myself are going to say that this is not the case, and that they maybe played these characters a little bit looser, or they toned them down. And I am not going to discredit anybody for saying that, but I do think the core of these characters do remain intact with the story, because as someone who really isn't that familiar with the Fantastic Four, I was loving a lot of this movie every step of the way. Everything that they did was just so engrossing. The fact that this is a Marvel movie, first and foremost, that feels like it was made by an actual filmmaker. I can't remember, well, I guess Thunderbolts, but besides that, I can't remember a time where a Marvel movie had such a specific vision. Maybe you could say Ryan Coogler with the Black Panther movies, but Max Shakman really has such a great eye for visuals, and the way that they cut these montages together, the split screens, it's so innovative in so many ways for a movie of this type. And also, I think the production design is absolutely incredible. And it's kind of amazing, bringing in this retro futurism into the MCU, especially into the Fantastic Four's world. But I think it works wonders. It's like you literally want to, read every sign that's hanging around New York City. You want to, walk around through this town and really get engulfed in this 1960s aesthetic. I think this absolutely deserves a production design nomination at the Oscars even. And that's the thing, when was the last time a Marvel movie had an actual practical set? I really cannot remember. And so it's so refreshing in so many ways, the look of this movie, but also how compact it is, and just similar to Superman, but I think it works even more here, is how they waste no time with the origin story. Like Superman, it's non-existent, but here you get this really great montage basically setting up this team. They go off on the mission, they get their powers, and then you kind of see all these vignettes of what they've been doing over the past few years as a team. And I think that really condenses a lot of the setup that had plagued the other movies, from my understanding, and really gets you right to the meat and potatoes of the story and this team. And I think it just sets everything up so well, and that's what's great about this movie. The way that everything is set up, for the most part, I think flows pretty naturally right into the next event or the next beat. And I think this is the perfect way to introduce us to this team in the MCU. Now let's talk about the players themselves, because the expectations are quite lofty for these actors to nail these characters right. Now I know there is some divisiveness amongst, how people feel about certain actors' portrayals, specifically Pedro Pascal, but I loved him as Reed Richards, man. He has such a confidence about him, but he's so literal, like, all the time, and he's spouting off factoids left and right, but yet you can tell how smart of a strategist he is just from that. But also just the relationship that he shares with Sue Storm, played by Vanessa Kirby in this, feels so real, so natural, so authentic. And I really love that the movie takes its time and pulls back and lets the emotions of these scenes breathe. It's not a particularly funny movie in a way that, the Guardians movies are, but what I think works about it is that it never lets the humor undermine any of the emotion that's happening on screen. Sure, there's a couple moments where the Marvel humor is a bit overdone, but those are very few and far between. And so, even if it isn't like a laugh-out-loud movie, I really do think that it gives its characters time to emote and to converse with each other. And those two specifically, I think, really, really nailed that dynamic. Now, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, I think, is the best part of this entire movie, honestly. She brings so much understanding, empathy, and emotion to this character, and you really feel how valuable she is to this team and to this family, of course. And she gets some of the best monologues and scenes in this entire film, really runs away with it, and I'm not surprised. She's probably the best actor just in general in this cast, so I'm really, really happy to see her portrayal of Sue Storm be brought to such exhilarating heights. And then, of course, you have Ebon Moss-Bachrach as Ben Grimm, aka The Thing. And I thought he brought such a gentleness to this character, and such a great empathy and understanding. Yet again, I'm going to use that word a lot probably. But there's such a wisdom that comes with his character, and an emotional intelligence that I think, even if the character of Ben Grimm gets a little short-shifted, I do feel his presence throughout the film is very, very consistent and very grounded. And I really loved what he did with this character. And I could also say the same for Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, which honestly is perfect casting. I have no complaints there. And yet again, he isn't as much as a womanizer in this. Doesn't really get the opportunity to be one. But he is very charismatic, jokey, and not in an annoying way. I feel like when it really comes down to it, you get to see who this guy is, and yet again why he is such a valuable member to this team. And I think he just nails the comedic timing in this film, and also just the persona and demeanor of Johnny Storm. And so I do think that this dynamic, more than anything, they all have such phenomenal chemistry together, especially Joseph Quinn and Ebon Moss-Bachrach. The way they joke around with one another and start, like, making, like, funny digs at each other, but in a way that feels very playful and non-intrusive. I really, really loved this dynamic, and you really feel that more than anything, this is a family. And I really love that you get to see that bond blossom and evolve throughout the movie, and just through their interactions. It's really, really, really terrific stuff. I think all around. You notice I didn't use the other word, but I really feel that they nailed the casting, and also Julia Garner as Silver Surfer, who I think is one of the most interesting villains in the MCU. I think that she really gets a lot of great moments in this movie, and a lot of great stuff to do. And Galactus, played by Ralph Ineson, is absolutely terrifying. It's like almost like the better version of Snoke when he's like in the throne in The Force Awakens. I really, really loved how they made him such a force to be reckoned with. Sure, there isn't like a whole lot. I think that there's enough for you to be intimidated by him and to know his purpose in the story. It isn't the most complex villain, but I think he is very, very effective for what he does. And you feel the looming threat of Galactus throughout this entire film in a way that the stakes are always continuing to build. And yeah, you definitely feel his presence, and I absolutely love that. And there's a lot of other great people in the cast, which I won't entirely get into, but I think that that is what really works the most about this. And the visuals, of course, I really love how they built this world of Earth 828, because yet again, as I said, I love the aesthetic, but also the fact that this movie feels cartoonish in the best ways possible that I'd imagine the 1960s Fantastic Four comics were. And I love that the movie embraces that in a way that I think works even better than in Superman, where there's a lot more tonal inconsistencies. I feel like this one kind of nails it from the beginning and just kind of keeps that all the way through. It is, yet again, a very, very comic book movie, but in the best ways possible, where it feels like you're turning the page and you're wanting to see what is going to happen next in this world. Also, I have to shout out Kirby, who was utilized so well in this movie. Little bro was cracking me up the whole time, and every time he came on screen, it was such a delight to hear his little robot voice inflect, and oh my goodness, I absolutely loved it. Even like the small details down to that just were so appreciated and felt throughout the entire film. And another very noteworthy element I have to mention is Michael Giacchino's score, which is absolutely phenomenal. Yet again, I'm avoiding that word. But really, I feel like not only is the way that these arrangements come together, you know, especially with a lot of the vocal parts and harmonies, and also just, you know, the way they utilize these synths in there. It's very futuristic, but also very classic and iconic. And I really do think that this is going to go on to be one of the most iconic superhero scores, I think. Obviously not at the same level as Batman or Superman or anything like that, but I really do feel like just a Fantastic Four, like everyone already knows like the theme. I mean, I think this deserves an Oscar nomination as well, along with the production design. You know, of course, visual effects is a shoo-in, but I really, really love the work that Michael Giacchino does here, and he continues his streak as being one of the greatest composers of the modern era of film. And I also think that there's some space travel sequences in this movie that are on par with Star Wars. Honestly, I think that this is probably better than any Star Wars movie that Disney has come out with. And it's weird that I'd be giving that accolade to a Fantastic Four movie, you know? But I really do think the way that all these action sequences come together is some of the most riveting and most tightly edited and constructed sequences we've seen in a Marvel movie in quite some time. And I really just love, yet again, how this movie continues to build upon itself as the narrative rolls along. And the conflict, I can say the same for. It really gets to some interesting places. And what I love about Fantastic Four First Steps is how it shows these characters through their actions, which is such a great way of revealing character, because I know a lot of people are going to say, well, there isn't enough character development for these guys, which I suppose is a fair criticism in some regard, but I do think that action is everything, and there is so much here in the writing of these characters, which really shows you just how brilliant they are and how well they work together to kind of, you know, come to this common ground and you know, to save the world together, and how they go about it. It's really, really brilliant stuff. And yet again, I mean, there's so many moments here where the stakes are so high, and even if there's certain areas where, let's say, they play it safe, I feel like a lot of the pathos that is built up to those moments is earned. Like, I don't really understand the criticism of this being small scale, especially when everybody's been complaining about the multiverse. Like, let's just stop that shit right now, alright? That's a little silly. Come on, guys. Beggars can't be choosers, right? But I do think, even though this is a smaller scale story, I do feel like the stakes are always high, even all the way to the end of this film. And that's what I love about it. It's a very self-contained story. It doesn't, well, it will tie into the greater whole of the MCU, but it doesn't feel like you have to, you know, play catch-up or do homework to, you know, kind of get invested into these characters, because I was with them from the get, and all the way to the end, to be honest. I really, really enjoyed this ride from top to bottom. Now, I will get into some criticisms here, of course. There's definitely a lot of this movie that was cut out, especially with Ben Grimm, because I feel like you get a lot with Reed Richards and Sue Storm Richards, and, of course, Johnny Storm. But Ben Grimm, like I said, he kind of gets the short end of the stick. I mean, there's this whole subplot with Natasha Lyonne, who is good in the movie when she's on screen, but it really kind of goes nowhere, and it just kind of confused me, because obviously Ben Grimm is like the most traumatized out of all these individuals. I mean, you see his physical appearance. I would have loved to explore, you know, the conflict that he has, having to be in this monstrous type of form that was kind of enforced upon him. I really think that there's a lot of interesting stuff you can explore. Now, I'm kind of thinking that maybe when there's a sequel, which inevitably there should be, because this has been very, very successful, it's broken Marvel's streak of failures at the box office. I think the next movie should be like Guardians Volume 3, where it focuses on Ben Grimm like it focused on Rocket, and it's like his story in that particular entry, and everything else is built around it. I think that would really be great. I think it would be a great way of really building his character. Like, as I said, like, he's consistent throughout the entire movie, but they don't give him a whole lot to do, and you definitely felt that. And of course, there's a couple plot conveniences and possibilities that they just kind of rush through, but to me it makes sense. I'm not going super deep into criticizing those, because yeah, you feel a little bit, but it is a comic book movie. I wasn't too upset by, you know, the crazy things that they were doing and how it came together, but there definitely could have been a few more beats to flesh out the film. Even if they added like 5 to 10 minutes on this movie, I think it's so well paced that it really wouldn't have bothered me that much. I just want to see more from these characters and more from the world, but otherwise I think the plot is incredibly well constructed all the way to the end, and honestly, this is one of my favorite Marvel movies of all time. I mean, it probably ranks number 10 for me when I break it down. But I think it's really just because they finally nailed this team. I was with the story every step of the way. I was really invested, not only in the world and the visuals, but these characters. And I really cannot wait to see what they do with this team next, especially going into Avengers Doomsday, which somehow I'm like a little bit more excited for, I suppose. And, yeah, I mean, Marvel has a lot, of course, correcting to do, of course. I mean, there's no way around it. But I feel like this is really a first step in the right direction. And I'm going to give Fantastic Four First Steps a 8.5 out of 10. This is not only the best comic book movie of the year, in my opinion, but also one of the best of the decade. It's actually my fourth. I swear I'm not making these puns up. Like, this is actually, it ranks pretty highly for me as of now from what we've gotten in the 20s so far. But yeah, this is one of my favorite movies of the year. I don't think it's going to make my top 10 list, obviously, once we reach the end. It would be number 10 right now, not number 4. But still, I think that you have to rush out to the theaters to see this if you're a fan of Marvel, if you're a fan of comic book movies, because I really think that Marvel's back. I don't know how they bounced back from literally their worst movie to 2 of their absolute best. Don't ask me why. It's just how it is. But I'm all here for it now, going forward. I really hope that they can turn the ship around. And yeah, I cannot wait to see the sequel to this, and I really hope they bring back the same creative team, because you can definitely tell that there was a lot of love put into the making of this film, and it comes across the screen, I think, in almost every frame. So yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on the Fantastic Four First Steps. You let me know down in the comments below what you thought of the movie, whether you loved it, whether you didn't love it, whether you hated it, I don't know why. But let me know all that and more, and please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more movie reviews like this. Definitely got a couple more videos coming your way this week. Going to be kind of busy with that. In fact, I want to bring an on-wax review of the new Tyler, the Creator album, of course, Don't Tap the Glass, and also an early review of Michael Shank's Together, starring Dave Franco and Allison Brie. So stay on the lookout for that and so much more, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.